What's up guys, I'm just a gamer and I'm back with another video. This is just a quick video. Last week with the State of Play where they announced the God of War Trilogy Remake, and I'm super hyped on it, and I am a God of War fan. I've played every game except for I think the mobile game, which I heard it was terrible anyway, and a Facebook game that I didn't even know about until I looked it up. I was like, what? So, but other than that, I have played every single God of War game. I have platinumed every single God of War game. So yeah, I love God of War. And a few days ago, or 2 days ago, IGN released an article asking whether the God of War, the original sex mini games, should be remade and brought back. And first of all, it's very stupid to even speculate about that at this point, because the announcement last week had stated that basically nothing of this game is done, nothing is decided. It's them even announcing it is kind of way too soon in some people's opinion, which is okay, I can understand it, because again, nothing of this game is set in stone or done yet. So them even putting out this article is a bit oh, come on, really? Because it started a firestorm of people talking about, oh, what about this in the remake? What if they change this? What if they add this? What? Oh, that's not good. And it's just, the fandom is now all in a little bit of a tizzy now. And I just want to get my little thoughts on there real quick. And honestly, when it comes to the sex minigames, I don't see why they wouldn't. If you go back, in fact, I might be putting footage right now. The sex mini games from the original game aren't that bad. I mean, first of all, they're actually I think in the first 2 games, they're hidden. The little icon doesn't show up to get into bed with the ladies unless you jump onto the bed already. And then the circle shows up that shows you can actually engage with them. Same thing with 2, where they're behind this little frame in a pool, and you have to break that frame before the ability to even see these women in 2 shows up. So yeah, first of all, there's that point. And then second of all, they're not even that bad. I mean, yes, they show 2 topless women, but the minute you see him walk up to them, the camera pans over to the side. In the first game, it was a night table, and you hear grunting and moaning, and you see a vase shaking until it falls and shatters. And in 2, same thing, where the minute he walks up to these ladies, the camera pans over to a peeing cupid or a peeing angel, and the water sprays until it sputters all over the place when it is done. And I don't remember Chains of Olympus. Ghost of Sparta, I think he goes into a brothel and women go in and then they come out. Again, nothing is shown. The camera goes over to a side somewhere showing nothing. And then I think the most gratuitous one would be the one in 3 where again, they show him get into bed with Aphrodite, but then the camera pans over to 2 women behind a pillar watching them. And again, you're hearing the groaning and the moaning, and then it finishes with the 2 women getting apparently so hot or turned on by watching that they fall behind the pillar and they end up, having sex behind the pillar themselves. And I think that's the most gratuitous one. And yeah, I mean, honestly, that's nothing compared to nowadays with Mass Effect, Baldur's Gate 3, Witcher 2 and 3. There's plenty of games where not only do they have nudity, but some of the actual sexual acts are portrayed more graphically. And yeah, the games are lauded, loved, and nobody really bats an eye and cares. So for people to speculate that the sex mini games from the God of War games should oh my god, they're too risque to bring back, is kind of ridiculous in my opinion. It's kind of stupid. Again, nothing is shown. Again, they show topless women, but that's it. It's a nothing burger. If for whatever reason they decide not to bring the minigames back, I would think that's kind of stupid, just because it makes no sense in my eyes. Because again, they show really nothing. They do nothing. But I just saying, in my opinion, that's my opinion, it would be stupid of them to do. And honestly, if we think back to when the original God of War came out, as messed up as it might be to say, that sex minigame and the hyper violence of the game were pretty much the cornerstones of what that game was like, that game's popularity. You know, people heard about it and they were like, holy crap. And obviously it also got a lot of like negative attention from politicians and stuff saying, oh my god, these sex and video games are blah 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 blah. But there's no denying that, you know, the sex mini games and the violence were very much the spirit of the game, you know? Obviously as the games progressed, the sex mini game really became a nothing, you know, added nothing to it. It became nothing. It was more about the violence. It was more about Kratos, the anger, the story. That's what really captivated and took people. And again, yes, the sex mini game still showed up, but it was really, no one ever really talked about it anymore that much. It was gone. It fell to the wayside, and it was never that big of a deal. So for them to like, again, because it's not that big of a deal, I can understand why some people were like, oh, we don't need it anymore, because again, yeah, it's more about Kratos himself. But at the same time, it's like, yes, they were not that big, they became not that big of a deal because of Kratos' story and how, you know, people fell in love with him and his character. But it doesn't deny the fact that in the original, when it first came out, that 6 minigame and the subsequent minigames, you know, they became part of that game's identity. That, you know, the series' identity. Obviously, that's no longer the case with 2018's God of War and Ragnarok and Valhalla, but still, like, it was birthed from that. And for them to, like, take that away, again, I think takes away a little bit of what made the original God of War games, God of War. That's just me. Just putting it out there. I would say I'm more curious about how they will handle the hyper violence of the original games. Because if you look at 2018 and Ragnarok and Valhalla, you're mostly fighting Draugr or like monster type enemies where like, it's either green blood or like, you know, the Draugr like spill out, like it's like almost like orange blood of some kind. And there are some more actual living enemies, but even then, like, there's really not that much blood in the game. You know what I mean? I mean, that's not to say that 2018 and Ragnarok and Valhalla don't have, like, you know, brutal finishers, because some of them are quite brutal and intense, but I don't think they're on the level of what the original trilogy did with the whole, you know, in 3, Poseidon getting his eyes gouged out, Kratos, you know, ripping Helios' head off. And I'm very curious to see, like, with, like, how they'll handle the violence with technology as it is now. Like, will they go the same route of, like, with Helios, his head getting ripped off and all that? That was brutal and intense, and it's a moment that like defined that game, and they even brought it up in Valhalla. And I'm very curious if like they're gonna keep that level of detail in the remake of the first game, where every time, you know, he finishes off a Medusa, that's what he does, he rips off their heads. And I'm just like, are they gonna add that level of detail every time he rips off a Medusa's head? You know, gouging out a Cyclops' eye, stabbing a Minotaur in the head and twisting it. Like, there are some very brutal kills, and I'm very curious to see, like, in terms of violence, are they going to like just go full in and just like really get in there, or are they gonna maybe tone it back down like they did with the newer games? And, you know, where again, the newer games are, you know, quite intense, and still some are brutal. They're not as, you know, gory or intense as the originals. So that's actually more like the thing that I'm more curious about than the sex minigames. I'm more curious about how they're going to handle the hyper violence of the originals. And then I've also, real quick, just people talking about, like, do they think they're going to remake the gameplay of the originals to be more like, you know, 2018 and Ragnarok, or are they going to keep it like the original games? And honestly, I would say they have to keep it like the original games, just because the original games were like hack and slash, combo heavy, you know, jumping into the air, doing a bunch of combos in the air, coming back down, doing a bunch of magic attacks to like really blast people. You know, that was a defining feature of that game, that game's combat, which is like, it was brutal fun. And 2018 and Ragnarok, while they are amazingly fun, it has amazing combat that is super fun. That style of game I don't think will fit with the gameplay and the feel that was of the originals. They have to keep it how the originals was, just because of like the Chains of Olympus being your the Blades of Chaos being your main weapon. Like, again, people loved the aerial combat and the swirling everywhere around. It's like, that's what people loved about those games. And going to a more 2018 route, I think would not make fans happy, me included. That being said, though, obviously the Blades of Chaos in 2018 and Ragnarok are amazing, but they're obviously, you don't have the combos you have in the original games. And that also brings up where, like, yes, I want them to keep it like the original, but obviously bring in some modern little elements. Obviously, being able to control the camera would be fantastic, because in the original games there was locked camera angles, like, and I think you had to press the stick was actually your dodge. So that's something that hopefully they change, where they maybe put the dodge on a button like current games or modern games. But then that makes the curious of like, what would they have to change button wise to do that? But regardless, those are that's something I would love for them to add and see and, like, you know, change up. But I would mostly want them to stick with how the original games worked. But again, I just wanted to get these little thoughts out there, just because IGN's article started this whole tizzy from the fandom, and it's just like, it's way too early to even speculate anything. It's crazy and ridiculous, and we just need to wait and hope and pray that Santa Monica knows what fans love and want, and just hope for the best. But again, those are my thoughts. I just wanted to get them out there real quick. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you agree? Disagree? Do you think the sex minigame should be taken out? Do you think they should come back? What about the violence? Do you think they'll bring it, like, you think they'll go all in and make it on the hyper violence, or you think they'll tone it back down? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I would love to hear from you. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this? If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like or comment down below. I'd appreciate any and all feedback. Subscribe. I finally got multi-streaming down, so you can catch me on Twitch at twitch.tv/JustAGamerInc, all together in word, or you can click the link below. And on YouTube, just hit that notification bell to know when I go live. But again, let me know your thoughts on GoW Trilogy Remake. What are your hopes for it? What are your, like, fears for it? Let me know. But regardless, thank you for watching, and until next time, take care and have a good game.